Hi, I'm Sam, and let me take you somewhere. Okay, so welcome to the gaming room here, where I have my screens and dice and minis and standees and warp core. So, I've been preparing for a year now to run the old Shackleton Expanse campaign. So, it's not our first season, but we never ran anything from this book at all before. I'm loving this book. This is an amazing book. There's so many cool species and planets and places and things. It's incredible. But I don't tend to run pre-written adventures. I tend to write my own stuff. But I think this is going to be great. Would it take me a year? It's thick. It's a thick book. Just the pace of me reading. So, yeah. So we have the crew of the USS Cassini. It's an Intrepid class ship full of oddball, interesting characters. A good portion of the crew are cetacean, dolphin-style cetaceous officers. So there are like some decks that are half water. It's a bit of an experimental ship. Our campaign took place in the sort of standard 2371, which is TNG ends, Generation happens, Deep Space Nine is just beginning, and Voyager has almost quite yet to happen. And I've also run a one-shot with some other folks that took place in 2370, 16, I think it was 70. Specifically because I needed it to be before certain things. Certain characters wanted the older style uniform, so I had it during a transition period where we still could kind of have both uniforms, like Deep Space Nine's first episode, or Generations. And the Cardassians still needed to be villainous for that one shot, and that was awesome. I ran so much good stuff. I had a bunch of 3D printed minis. It ran really, really well. New campaign set a couple years after the one shot, 1 year after the season 1 of our USS Cassini game, and the crew's being shipped out to the Shackleton Expanse, where, you know, the usual storyline, if anyone's read this, of, hey, we can explore this now that warp engines and flight and shields have gotten good enough to deal with all the spatial eddies and odd, warpy spatial waves. So that's going to be cool. And I had my crew ask a lot of questions. Session 0 went fantastically. I am going to end up doubled the size of the game, so there's 2 sessions of 4 people, of 4 players, instead of 1 session of 4 players. So I was worried that I had invited 8 people to play, but it ended up bifurcating into a couple buckets of sessions. So not so bad. Not so bad at all. On the crew, we have our XO is Jeffrey Brush. We pretend is played by the famous Jeffrey Combs, guest actor in lots of Star Trek. The crew has a chef on board, actually. Special request from the captain. So he is a chef who grew up in Little Andoria in Italy. So it's Italian Andorian cuisine. Speaking of which, I have had to think 30 steps ahead of my players in many, many regards, especially with the NPCs. And I have come up with menus for a good half dozen restaurants, like a Romulan restaurant, an Orion restaurant, a freaking Tamarian restaurant, his kitchen open. It's absolutely crazy. I'm very excited. I really hope they explore the Galleria on Narendra Station, which, for those who don't know, is basically like the promenade in Deep Space Nine. a big mall area for the people who live on the starbase. Yeah. Now, in terms of other prep I've been doing, take a look at my GM screen. So I've made myself some custom GM screen stuff. So this is so I can put traits on. It's a dry erase board. Well, a custom dry erase board. It's 3D printed plus some plastic bits so that I can just be like, trait. Which I'm excited for. To get to use more often. I do understand traits, but I've never used traits nearly as effectively as, say, like when I played in a game run by Al Spader, right? Really, really, really good at using traits in his games. So I'm hoping to do more of that. That'll be exciting. Yes, and so I have all of these fun little trackers to keep track of threat and momentum pool, and I have one for all the players that keep track of their determination and stress. So that'll be fun. So I 3D printed some things so I could mount them on top of the GM screen. Because I saw other people in our D&D games have little 3D printed things that clipped on that were good for initiative tracking, which I was like, ooh, that's impressive, cool. I'll do something similar. So, yeah, so I ended up using magnets to give myself some means of providing information for my GM screen. So basic info on this page, some momentum threat spends, NPCs, common task combinations, you know. These images, and you'll see all these standees, all the little characters on the standees. I built a whole Star Trek character creator online. I know there is one that's linked in many places, like Continuing Missions, and I think there's one that's built into the BC Holmes character creator website, which is a cool website. But I did want something that was that I could control, that I was able to expand. I've been really, really into creating all of the uniforms and all of the badges. And so I've gone ahead and made sure that you can recreate all of the species and characters that you see fit in Star Trek games in my character creator. And I went through and I recreated the different crews of different Star Trek shows. And then I recreated some of the characters from the Shackleton Expands NPC book and kept recreating until it forced me to create enough new options to cover all of those characters. So if you have a character who has some features that maybe, you know, Geordi's visor and Worf's ponytail and, Samantha Rutherford's cybernetic implant, right? I've recreated enough of the crews. Boimler's hair, right? So you can use those all as choices in the character creator. So I've printed off all of those guys in here, and then sort of combat rules, minor actions, major actions, and then some starship combat rules in here. On that note, I went through and I've been very, very concerned about learning the Starship combat rules because we've not done it in any of our games yet, first or second edition. I mean, I've done it in Captain's Log, plenty, but Captain's Log rules are considerably simpler. And I don't think it's nearly as fun for a whole group, so I'd really rather learn to play. So in that vein, I started backing the guys' Patreon, Off My Bridge, formerly How to Be a Great GM. So he made a bunch of Starship combat cards that if you're on his Patreon, you can have access to, and I put them into the Make Playing Cards website and ordered them. Super excited for these order pattern cards and all of the Starship combat cards. So I had ordered those. Very, very excited. And I went through and I made sure to everybody who is playing has access to a tricorder printed in the colors of their choice. So this is, gosh, it's been around a little while. There was a first edition tricorder dice holder model that someone went ahead and modified for 2nd edition to hold just D20s. I've got one of the 1st edition ones that scaled like 20% larger, so it holds the massive Kirk dice. Yeah, so printed every one of my players one of these, which was really, really exciting. I'm happy. These are dice that I purchased from my buddy from Humble Dragon. I'll put on screen his shop. Awesome dice. Awesome dice. And he does a good job. So excited to roll those. Let's see. And then, oh yes, and I got this from Etsy. So nice little Federation dice tray, which I tend to roll in. So have all of this, which I made these sheets in PowerPoint, and I printed them off on 8.5 by 11, and then I sort of built this GM screen around it. So, and as you see, I have some of these ships from, oh god, what is it? Starfleet Attack something. I don't know what the game is. It seems very much like the I played the X-Wing tabletop game, and it seems like these are almost the same thing but for Star Trek. Equally fun is I went ahead and recreated Narendra Station in Blender and printed myself a mini of it. A few different 3D printed miniatures that I've put up on my, I believe the website's Cults 3D. I can link that as well. I've been having a lot of fun learning Blender and utilizing my 3D printer more in that vein. Just to show off a bit more of the standees, these are all folks from other planets or from the Galleria. A lot of restaurant owners, various planets. These are sort of the standard Klingon and Federation folks from the Starbase 364. And I made these fun tents for the players to use while they're at the table, and it took me a little bit to get just the right things dialed in for the 3D print. It's a rather simple print, but you make mistakes, you make adjustments. And then because I'm ridiculous, open up KDE Connect. So the computer behind me, I have running Red Alert. I'll reset the lights. Oh, and the warp core, which, give it a half a second. And some lightning mode. And then I have playing our Star Trek Misfits game opening, which I can then show is instantly playing. So is this all overkill? Yeah, a great deal of it. To be real, quite frank, a great deal of it is overkill. But I really like Star Trek. I've been deep diving a little bit hard the past few years, and I really like this game. I like tabletop games, and I like how narrative, I like how the dice system feels different than sort of the classic D&D one, but feels good. It's different in an interesting way, and in a way that I can GM. I feel comfortable being the game master of this game. That's not saying nothing. There's a lot of games that I would love to run, but I'm not sure how comfortable I feel. So, yeah, this is, it's exciting for me, and I hope it's exciting for all my players. So, yeah, we'll see. The Star Trek Misfits Season 2 begins real soon, in a couple weeks. We had a successful Session 0, so the weeknight group will be playing a really cool mission. They'll be primarily on the Cassini ship, and they're going to go to some interesting location to sort of kick off the mysteries of Shackleton Expanse. And the weekend session, the crew is going to be mostly on the Starbase and runabouts and that sort of thing, sort of a Deep Space Nine vibe. And I have a whole bunch of I have a bunch of real fun stories that are going to kick off sort of the vibe of who are the players in the space, who are the polities, the groups, the people who are on this station and in the area. So that's going to introduce all that to them. So we'll have the mysteries, we'll have the players of the space, of the narrative. And we're going to introduce both of those. And hopefully, the two groups are going to talk. I don't expect Beta Shift and Delta Shift to keep things from each other. Their episodes are happening simultaneously. There shouldn't really be secrets. So, anyway, thanks for all the listening to my rambles. And I'll see you in space.